Here on the constellation, we'll encounter the especial ministry of the supervisor seraphim. And some of those folks are concerned with us. I'm on page 432. I don't think we have too much to do with the supervising assistants or the law forecasters, but we do with the social architects. From the individual planets up through the Morancha trading worlds, these supernaphim labor to enhance all sincere social contacts and to further the social evolution of universe creatures. They are the angels who seek to divest the associations of intelligent beings of all artificiality, while endeavoring to facilitate the interassociation of will creatures on a basis of real self-understanding and genuine mutual appreciation. Social architects do everything within their province and power to bring together suitable individuals that they may constitute efficient and agreeable working groups on Earth. And sometimes such groups have found themselves reassociated on the mansion worlds for continued fruitful service. But not always do these seraphim attain their ends. Not always are they able to bring together those who would form the most ideal group to achieve a given purpose or to accomplish a certain task. Under these conditions, they must utilize the best of the material available.
That's where they are with us. So.
I'm sure they are, yes. I'm sure they are. These angels continue their ministry on the mansion and higher Morancha worlds. They are concerned with any undertaking having to do with progress on the Morancha worlds, and which concerns 3 or more persons. 2 beings are regarded as operating on the mating, complemental, or partnership basis. But when 3 or more are grouped for service, they constitute a social problem and therefore fall within the jurisdiction of the social architects. These efficient seraphim are organized in 70 divisions on Edentia, and these divisions minister on the 70 Morancha progress worlds encircling the headquarters sphere. I think the next group are very interesting. And I think what they do applies down here. Ethical sensitizers. I like that description, to become more sensitive to ethics. It is the mission of these seraphim to foster and to promote the growth of creature appreciation of the morality of interpersonal relationships. For such is the seed and secret of the continued and purposeful growth of society and government, human or superhuman. These enhancers of ethical appreciation function anywhere and everywhere they may be of service, as volunteer counselors to the planetary rulers and as exchange teachers on the system training worlds. You will not, however, come under their full guidance until you reach the brotherhood schools on Edentia, where they will quicken your appreciation of those very truths of fraternity, which you will even then be so earnestly exploring by the actual experience of living with the Unipatetia in the social laboratories of Edentia, the 70 satellites of the Norlashadek capital. I think there's a lot of things we should do down here that would make us more human. And I suspect that we are sufficiently slothful not to do many of them. And we may still survive. We'll survive with qualifications. I think the nearest to the pain of purgatory will be experienced by those of us who are slothful and who have to do up there some corrective things which we should have done down here. And let's reason by analogy. When a baby is born into the world, it is assumed that it has absolutely no control over its plumbing. And we provide diets and all that sort of thing. But it's also assumed that that child, at a reasonably early age, will get a valve built in there, so that they are able to control this plumbing equipment. As long as that happens, nobody thinks anything of it. There's a period where bedwetting is expected and normal and perfectly natural. It's childlike. I have a friend of mine who has a son who went to college, and he carried this habit into the fraternity house. And can you imagine his mortification Now, I think many of us are going to wind up on the first mansion world and others as spiritual bedwetters. And I think our humiliation will be even deeper there than the social humiliation of my friend's son. As I started to say, when I said the book does teach that if survival is attained, all other losses can be retrieved, and I don't want to be interrupted till I've explained what that means to me. Jesus lived and taught in a way that illuminates that. He didn't ask the same of everyone. And that's why I refuse to sit in judgment on anyone, because I don't really know the gut of that person. He sent the Alphaeus twins back to their nets and promised them they were going to survive. He made it pretty tough for Simon Peter. In fact, he put Simon Peter through a pretty horrible experience to vaccinate him, because Peter's vacillating tendency was fatal to the future. He put Peter through great pain. And then he got Peter a little mad. And he said, Peter, be a good shepherd, feed my sheep. He pointed out that of the teacher more is expected than of the pupil, of the master more than of the servant. Jesus taught two levels of ethics, two distinct levels of ethics. To the believer, he said, love your neighbor as yourself. To those who would attempt to represent him in the world, he said, you must love men as I have loved men, and these are your credentials. He didn't expect all men to love with father-like affection. He's willing to settle for fraternal affection. That's the minimum ethic. The maximum ethic is father-like. I think any human being who is failing to try to live up to his capacities is gambling with non-survival. This is my personal opinion. I don't think any human being has to achieve his capacities, because it said Abraham believed faintly, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. And maybe that's as much as old Abe could do right then. But I can only tell you how I feel. I don't sit in judgment on you folks. If I fail to try to do my best, I'm not so sure I'm going to make it. I don't believe I can sit on my dead duck and count on God's love to pull me through. That is not a childlike faith. That is childish presumption.
You think time?
You evidently want me to preach at you a little bit, so I'll give you a little preaching.
But does time enter in there too? I mean, I'm still thinking of Betty's funny little talk.
That's up to Betty.
I mean, but you think time's important.
Oh, time is vital to everything this side of paradise, yes. Yes, it's later than any of us think.
It's an evidence of sincerity.
Yes. No, just remember, you cannot sit in judgment on the sincerity of another human being. This is folly, as well as darn near sinful. There's only one person I can sit in judgment on. That's Bill Sadler. And you'd be amazed if you knew how harsh a judgment that was. You know? That's up to each one of you folks. You've got to roll your own hoop, and there is no magic formula, except of the teacher more is expected than of the pupil. The parable of the 5 talents is a good example. And at a certain point, Jesus said to Judas, Judas, that which you have in mind to do, go now and do quickly. Jesus rejected Judas. But again, the fact that the 12 apostles at the very beginning of the Last Supper succeeded in making 12 perfect asses out of themselves, I don't think prejudiced their chances for survival. And the degree of their asininity of conduct was pretty quickly revealed when Jesus got down and washed their feet. These are human beings. He loved them. And in spite of all that they'd been through with him, they could still resent, they could still want preferment. They were still human and a bit too mammalian.
No, they weren't. They were human.
They were pretty mammal-like in that arguing about who gets the seat of honor.
Oh, that night they
Yeah, sure. That's what I'm talking about. And Peter pouting in the very bottom seat, hoping Jesus would ask him to come up higher. Jesus said, "Let's let him sit where he was sitting, that's all." And in view of what happened later, it was convenient to have Judas as a next-door neighbor. He could whisper to him. It says that the human soul becomes divine not by what it does, but by what it tries to do.
That's right.
If you die insincere but trying to be sincere, like Abraham's faith, I fancy it's counted unto you for righteousness. Now, I think most people strike themselves out. And I don't think they strike themselves out by being vicious or mean, simply by being typical mammals and lazy. And mammals don't survive. Only humans survive. This is my personal credo. I'm running with all kinds of faith in God, but with no particular confidence in surviving. And I think that's good for me. Just as I think a good speaker always has a few butterflies before he gets up to talk. And if he ever lost those butterflies, he might be pretty darn smug. And the talk might be pretty darn lousy. So you see, I do support Dorothy in her contention that we should be about our Father's business.
Bill, how do you answer that? Marie would come right back and say, why, it says in the book that all you have to do to survive is want to.
I'm not so sure that that doesn't work for Marie. I'm not so sure it would work for me. My old pal Charlie Rawson, who was a Presbyterian minister and a grand guy, was like the lilies of the field in his unconcern about money. And Charlie didn't require a whole lot of money, and by gollies, it worked for Charles Rawson. If Charlie was broke and needed to go someplace, a couple would show up to get married and pay Charlie $20. This worked for Charlie. This will not work for Bill Sadler. You see, the reason it's so impossible to compute percentages on survival is because this is such a totally individual proposition.
Yes, it is.
And that's why Jesus made the paradoxical statement which he made. Peter had been talking about the straight and narrow way, you remember?
Yeah.
And the broad path that leadeth unto destruction, the old primrose freeway. And Jesus commented on Peter's teaching, and he said it's not without merit. And then he said, the path to the doorway to survival is indeed a narrow one. But he said it's also wide enough to accommodate anyone who really wants to make it, because I am that door.
And then that's the significant part of it.
You see, I think for the little guy, the doorway is big.
Yeah.
And for the big guy, the doorway is small.
Yeah.
This is a variable doorway. I don't feel discouraged about this survival business, but I sure don't feel smug. I feel thoroughly challenged. That's my feeling.
Well, that's wonderful.
Because I think the price of my survival is going to be to jump across that parallel bar just about as high as I can jump. They're not going to set the bar low for me, I don't believe. This much intellectual conceit I have. I'm afraid the bar is going to be pretty high for me. I'm running extremely challenged, not scared, but very challenged. That's my reaction.
Okay.
And if somebody else feels very comfortable and secure in the love of God, by gollies, I'm not so sure that won't work for them. It won't work for me.
That's right.
You know what I'm glad of?
What?
I'm glad that they've got some very wonderful beings that decide such cases,
I mean,
that can look inside a person's heart.
The infallible IBM machine.
Yes, I'm glad that the thought adjuster gives testimony.
The motive. Yeah.
I'm glad that everybody, that they can be really sure. And always remember they say, in case of doubt, we always advance the creature. But I'm going to try not to use my grace period of 30 days on survival.
Bill,
The story on Salvington is hard to pick up. If you notice, I've been reading largely in two groups of papers. The papers describing the worlds themselves, and then the parallel comments in the discussion of seraphim who minister on these worlds. Try 387. There is no paper on Salvington, as we have a paper on Edentia and one on Jerusalem. Had you thought of that?
Indeed so. Yeah.
And I think it's because at about the time we leave Edentia, this thing gets too tough to describe. It's too completely spiritual. And again, Dorothy, when we talk about irritation and resentment, please remember, they are using our words. And probably what we would call gross mammalian irritation and resentment has long since gone. But we still have yet to perfect our social attitudes.
Yeah.
And we still have to get rid of something which at our level is irritation and resentment. And no other word in Bantu for it when you get to the Univitation. You follow me?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. This is a further purification and refinement.
Go on.
Salvington has a circuit of 70 primary spheres, each of which is encircled by 6 tributary spheres, so that we wind up with 491 worlds in the Salvington cluster. And you know, we better be socialized, because now we're mixing and mingling with the total population of a local universe. 99 other constellations are pouring their personnel into Salvington. And we have to do with the Melchizedek circuit, with the Melchizedek cluster of 7 spheres. The pilot world of this cluster of 7, the sphere Melchizedek. It's interesting, they name their home world by the name of their order. The planet Melchizedek is the common meeting ground for all beings who are engaged in educating and spiritualizing the ascending mortals. To an ascender, this world is probably the most interesting place in all Nebadon. All evolutionary mortals who graduate from their constellation training are destined to land on Melchizedek, where they are initiated into the regime of the disciplines and spirit progression of the Salvington educational system. And never will you forget your reactions to the first day of life on this unique world, not even after you've reached your paradise destination. Ascending mortals maintain residence on the Melchizedek world while pursuing their training on the 6 encircling planets of specialized education. And this same method is adhered to throughout their sojourn on the 70 cultural worlds, the primary spheres of the Salvington circuit. Many diverse activities occupy the time of the numerous beings who reside on the 6 tributary worlds of the Melchizedek sphere. But as concerns the ascending mortals, these satellites are devoted to the following special phases of study. Sphere number 1 is occupied with a review of the initial planetary life of the ascending mortals. This work is carried on in classes composed of those who hail from a given world of mortal origin. Those from Urantia pursue such an experiential review together. The special work of sphere number 2 consists in a similar review of the experiences passed through on the mansion worlds encircling the premier satellite of the local system headquarters. 3. The reviews of this sphere pertain to the sojourn on the capital of the local system and embrace the activities of the remainder of the architectural worlds of the system headquarters cluster. 4. The 4th sphere is occupied with a review of the experiences of the 70 tributary worlds of the constellation and their associated spheres. 5. On the 5th sphere, there is conducted the review of the ascendant sojourn on the constellation headquarters world. The time on sphere number 6 is devoted to an attempt to correlate these 5 epochs and thus achieve coordination of experience preparatory to entering the Melchizedek primary schools of universe training. The schools of universe administration and spiritual wisdom are located on the Melchizedek homeworld, where also are to be found those schools devoted to a single line of research, such as energy, matter, organization, communication, records, ethics, and comparative creature existence. I like that, comparative creature existence. In the Melchizedek College of Spiritual Endowment, all orders, even the paradise orders of the sons of God, cooperate with the Melchizedek and the seraphic teachers in training the hosts who go forth as evangels of destiny, proclaiming spiritual liberty and divine sonship, even to the remote worlds of the universe. This particular school of the Melchizedek University is an exclusive universe institution. Student visitors are not received from other realms. The highest course of training in universe administration is given by the Melchizedeks on their home world. This college of high ethics is presided over by the original Father Melchizedek. It is to these schools that the various universes send exchange students. While the young universe of Nebadon stands low in the scale of universes as regards spiritual achievement and high ethical development, nevertheless, our administrative troubles have so turned the whole universe into a vast clinic for other nearby creations that the Melchizedek colleges are thronged with student visitors and observers from other realms. Besides the immense group of local registrants, there are always upward of 100,000 foreign students in attendance upon the Melchizedek schools, for the order of Melchizedeks in Nebadon is renowned throughout all Splendon. That's our major sector. We do some work with the Verandadeks. We get a course of sprouts in legislative training on their world. We do some work with the Lenanandeks in executive training on their world. Unless we're physicists, biologists, or scientists, I don't imagine we do too much work on the life carrier cluster of worlds. I imagine we enjoy visiting the seraphic cluster of worlds, where it says these angels maintain beautiful home estates. On the worlds of the spirit-fused mortals, on their cluster, I think we'll enjoy them. They're our ascendant brethren. On the worlds of the Phenoliters, this is the Midsonite rendezvous. They tell us 9 of the 10 clusters around Salvington, but the 10th cluster is unnamed. You just won't find it in these papers. In connection with this, we'll have to do with a third order of superior seraphim, spirit coordinators. This group is based on Salvington, but function in the local universe anywhere they can be a fruitful service. While their tasks are essentially spiritual, and therefore beyond the real understanding of human minds, you will perhaps grasp something of their ministry to mortals if it is explained that these angels are entrusted with the task of preparing the ascendant sojourners on Salvington for their last translation in the local universe, from the highest Morantia level to the status of newborn spirit beings. As the mind planners on the mansion worlds help the surviving creature to adjust to and make effective use of the potentials of Morantia mind, so do these seraphim instruct the Morantia graduates on Salvington regarding the newly attained capacities of the mind of the spirit, and they serve the ascendant mortals in many other ways. On Salvington, I think we'll meet Michael. I think that'll be the most exciting experience, provided he's there while we're there. Because Michael is still Jesus. And while we could hardly fraternize with the Creator Son as a unified being, perhaps an adjuster-fused being can do something like a soap molecule. A soap molecule, you know, is a real molecule, but it is organic on one end and inorganic on the other. And that's why soap will pick up so many different things. And maybe we can polarize and kind of get the adjuster at the North Pole and the folksiness of us at the South Pole. And I think as a polarized being, we could fraternize. Because the humanity in us could reach out to the humanity in him, and the adjuster in us could certainly fraternize with his divinity. I think Salvington must be quite an experience, but it's a little too much to talk about. And then they don't write sections on any other capital. There's one more paragraph we might read. On page 428, flip back one page. Universe orientators. These are the true friends and postgraduate counselors of all those ascending creatures who are pausing for the last time on Salvington in their universe of origin, as they stand on the brink of the spirit adventure stretching out before them in the vast super-universe of Orvandan. And at such a time, many an ascender has a feeling which mortals could understand only by comparison with the human emotion of nostalgia. Behind lie the realms of achievement, realms grown familiar by long service and Morantia attainment. Ahead lies the challenging mystery of a greater and vaster universe. It is the task of the universe orientators to facilitate the passage of the ascending pilgrims from the attained to the unattained level of universe service, to help these pilgrims in making those kaleidoscopic adjustments in the comprehension of meanings and values inherent in the realization that a first stage spirit being stands not at the end and climax of the long local universe Morantia ascent, but rather at the very bottom of the long ladder of spiritual ascent to the Universal Father on Paradise. The postgraduate student has suddenly discovered he's a freshman in a higher university. I'm over on page 342. All ascenders arriving on the training worlds of the super-universes become the wards of the Ancients of Days. They have traversed the Morantia life of the local universe and are now accredited spirits. As young spirits, they begin the ascension of the super-universe system of training and culture, extending from the receiving spheres of the minor sector in through the study worlds of the 10 major sectors and on to the higher cultural spheres of the super-universe headquarters. There are 3 orders of student spirits in accordance with their sojourn upon the minor, major, and super-universe headquarters worlds. As Morantia ascenders studied and worked on the worlds of the local universe, so spirit ascenders continue to master new worlds while they practice at giving out to others that which they have imbibed at the experiential founts of wisdom. But going to school as a spirit being in the super-universe career is very unlike anything that has ever entered the imaginative realms of the material mind of man. Before leaving the super-universe for Havona, these ascending spirits receive the same thorough course in super-universe management that they received during their Morantia experience in local universe supervision. Before spirit mortals reach Havona, their chief study, but not exclusive occupation, is the mastery of local and super-universe administration. The reason for all this experience is not now fully apparent, but no doubt such training is wise and necessary in view of their possible future destiny as members of the core of the finality. The super-universe regime is not the same for all ascending mortals. They receive the same general education, but special groups and classes are carried through special courses of instruction and are put through specific courses of training. So now that we've taken an overview of the super-universe, let's consider what happens on the minor sector worlds. The minor sector headquarters worlds,
What page, Bill?
at 181, are the grand rendezvous of the master physical controllers. These headquarters worlds are surrounded by the 7 instruction spheres, which constitute the entrance schools of the super-universe, and are the centers of training for physical and administrative knowledge concerning the universe of universes. That's about all they say about our training there. But here is where we complete our study of gravita, ultimata, segregata, and so forth. It's these associate power directors who teach us. These are the people who manipulate energy in its more mature stages. And to me, it's almost shocking to think that when I've graduated from all connection with physical reality, I'm a first stage spirit. And so help me Henry, now I'm going to study physics and chemistry. You will all sometime know the 3 recents of days in charge of ENSA, your minor sector, since you must pass through their hands on your way inward to the training worlds of the minor sectors. In ascending to Uversa, you will pass through only one group of minor sector training spheres. As the magnificent satellites of Uversa are concerned with your final spiritual preparation for Havona, so are the 70 satellites of U Major the Fifth, devoted to your super-universe intellectual training and development. From all Orvantan, here are gathered together the wise beings who labor untiringly to prepare the mortals of time for their further progress toward the career of eternity. Most of this training of ascending mortals is conducted on the 70 study worlds. And still on the major sector headquarters, but on page 211, you will early see the perfections of days when you advance to the headquarters of Splendon after your sojourn on the worlds of your minor sector. For these exalted rulers are closely associated with the 70 major sector worlds of higher training for the ascendant creatures of time. The perfections of days in person administer the group pledges to the ascending graduates of the major sector worlds. The work of the pilgrims of time on the world surrounding a major sector headquarters is chiefly of an intellectual nature, in contrast with the more physical and material character of the training on the 7 educational spheres of a minor sector, and with the spiritual undertakings on the 490 university worlds of a super-universe headquarters. Although you are entered only upon the registry of the major sector of Splendon, which embraces the local universe of your origin, you will have to pass through every one of the 10 major divisions of our super-universe. You will see all 30 of the Orvantan perfections of days before you reach Uversa. There are 10 major sectors in Orvantan, and we study in each major sector. We're certified by every perfection of days in Orvantan before they pass us on to Uversa. This is page 274. On super-universe service, the Havona servitals are always assigned to that domain, presided over by the Master Spirit whom they most resemble. They serve only on the educational world surrounding the capitals of the 7 super-universes. And the last report of Uversa indicates that almost 138 billion servitals were ministering on its 490 satellites. They engage in an endless variety of activities in connection with the work of these educational worlds comprising the super-universities of the super-universe of Orvantan. Here they are your companions. They have come down from your next career to study you and to inspire you with the reality and certainty of your eventual graduation from the universes of time to the realms of eternity. And in these contacts, the servitals gain that preliminary experience of ministering to an ascending creature, which is so helpful in their subsequent work on the Havona circuits as associates of the graduate guides. That's about all they tell us about our sojourn on Uversa. But if we take a look at the ministering spirits, as usual, we find something helpful. The Sakanafim are the people who really minister, from our standpoint, in the super-universes. And starting on page 314, They discuss how they work with their superiors, the mighty messengers, those high in authority, those above name and number. But they also give a touch of how they work with us. The memory of mercy, they have a beautiful statement here. In as concerns adjudication of a being, the memory of mercy must show that the saving credit established by the sons of God has been fully and faithfully paid out in the loving ministry of the patient personalities of the third source and center. But when mercy is exhausted, when the memory thereof testifies to its depletion, then does justice prevail and righteousness decree. For mercy is not to be thrust upon those who despise it. Mercy is not a gift to be trampled underfoot by the persistent rebels of time. Nevertheless, though mercy is thus precious and dearly bestowed, your individual drawing credits are always far in excess of your ability to exhaust the reserve if you are sincere of purpose and honest of heart.
That would be a thing.
Yes. You have conditionally unlimited drawing account. But you can't forge any signatures there. You got to put down your honest name. The mercy reflectors with their tertiary associates engage in numerous super-universe ministries, including the teaching of the ascending creatures. Among other things, the significance of origins teach these ascenders how to apply spirit ethics, and following such training, the memories of mercy teach them how to be truly merciful. While the spirit techniques of mercy ministry are beyond your concept, you should even now understand that mercy is a quality of growth. You should realize that there is a great reward of personal satisfaction in being first just, next fair, then patient, then kind. And then, on that foundation, if you choose and have it in your heart, you can take the next step and really show mercy. But you cannot exhibit mercy in and of itself. These steps must be traversed. Otherwise, there can be no genuine mercy. There may be patronage, condescension, or charity, even pity, but not mercy. True mercy comes only as the beautiful climax to these preceding adjuncts to group understanding, mutual appreciation, fraternal fellowship, spiritual communion, and divine harmony. That's applicable here now. Those words are all English words and have some meaning to us at this level. And then the import of time. Time is the one universal endowment of all will creatures. It is the one talent entrusted to all intelligent beings. You all have time in which to ensure your survival, and time is fatally squandered only when it is buried in neglect, when you fail so to utilize it as to make certain the survival of your soul. Failure to improve one's time to the fullest extent possible does not impose fatal penalties. It merely retards the pilgrim of time in his journey of ascent. If survival is gained, all other losses can be retrieved.
So tough.
You will first encounter these beings on the mansion worlds, and they will there instruct you in the advantageous use of that which you call time, both in its positive employment, work, and in its negative utilization, rest. Both uses of time are important. Trust is the crucial test of will creatures. Trustworthiness is the true measure of self-mastery, character. These Sekanathim accomplish a double purpose in the economy of the superuniverses. They portray to all will creatures the sense of obligation, sacredness, and solemnity of trust. At the same time, they unerringly reflect to the governing authorities the exact trustworthiness of any candidate for confidence and trust. This next sentence keeps me perpetually humble. On your rancher, you grotesquely essay to read character and to estimate specific abilities. Grotesque is the adjective. But on your versa, we actually do these things in perfection. These Sekanophim weigh trustworthiness in the living scales of unerring character appraisal. And when they have looked at you, we have only to look at them to know the limitations of your ability to discharge responsibility, execute trust, and fulfill missions. Your assets of trustworthiness are clearly set forth alongside your liabilities of possible default or betrayal. It is the plan of your superiors to advance you by augmented trusts just as fast as your character is sufficiently developed to gracefully bear these added responsibilities. But to overload the individual only courts disaster. And the mistake of placing responsibility prematurely upon either man or angel may be avoided by utilizing the ministry of these infallible estimators of the trust capacity of the individuals of time and space. And then the sanctity of service. The privilege of service immediately follows the discovery of trustworthiness. This is just as applicable down here as it is up in the super universe, I think. Nothing can stand between you and opportunity for increased service except your own untrustworthiness, your lack of capacity for appreciation of the solemnity of trust. Service, purposeful service, not slavery, is productive of the highest satisfaction and is expressive of the divinest dignity. Service, more service, increased service, difficult service, adventurous service, and at last, divine and perfect service is the goal of time and the destination of space. But ever will the play cycles of time alternate with the service cycles of progress. And after the service of time, there follows the super service of eternity. During the play of time, you should envision the work of eternity, even as you will during the service of eternity reminisce the play of time. The universal economy is based on intake and output. Throughout the eternal career, you will never encounter monotony of inaction or stagnation of personality. Progress is made possible by inherent motion. Advancement grows out of the divine capacity for action, and achievement is the child of imaginative adventure. But inherent in this capacity for achievement is the responsibility of ethics, the necessity for recognizing that the world and universe are filled with a multitude of differing types of beings. All of this magnificent creation, including yourself, was not made just for you. This is not an egocentric universe. The gods have decreed it is more blessed to give than to receive. And said your master son, he who would be greatest among you, let him be the server of all. The real nature of any service, be it rendered by man or angel, is fully revealed in the faces of these secoraphic service indicators, the sanctities of service. The full analysis of the true and of the hidden motives is clearly shown. These angels are indeed the mind readers, heart searchers, and soul revealers of the universe. Mortals may employ words to conceal their thoughts, but these high Sekanophim lay bare the deep motives of the human heart and of the angelic mind. Do you begin to see, what, pardon?
On your versa?
All over the super universe and down below. Do you see why they don't make any mistakes when they advance us to Havana? They've looked inside our very gut. The ascending pilgrims, having awakened to the import of time, the way is prepared for the realization of the solemnity of trust and for the appreciation of the sanctity of service. While these are the moral elements of greatness, there are also secrets of greatness. When the spiritual tests of greatness are applied, the moral elements are not disregarded, but the quality of unselfishness revealed in disinterested labor for the welfare of one's earthly fellows particularly worthy beings in need and in distress. That is the real measure of planetary greatness. And the manifestation of greatness on a world like Urantia is the exhibition of self-control. The great man is not he who takes a city or overthrows a nation, but rather he who subdues his own tongue. Father. Here we take inventory for the first time in these papers of the 7 absolutes of infinity. Father, Son, Spirit, Paradise, Deity, Universal, and unqualified absolute. The first source and center is original reality. The next 3 are actual reality. The last 3 are potential reality. God